Okay, guys, welcome to a very special episode of the Ninja's Geeking Out podcast. Today, we are doing something very different than our normal usual format. We'll be taking this online and we'll be talking about what some of us have considered the best TV show of the year so far. But it's open to debate. It's open to debate because it's been requested by some of our fans that we review the show, even though it's not a comic book property, or it's something we all love, or something we all watched and enjoyed, and we're really looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah.
If you haven't guessed it by now, it is not Rings of Power, please. So, all you Lord of the Rings fans, please pack somewhere. We are talking about the Star Wars show Andor. And with me, some of the usual suspects. We have Red, the regular. How are you doing?
I'm good. Tunde always come with the shade. I don't care what side you're on. Comic book or not comic book. You're gonna get it. I'm good. Good to be here. Good to be here.
And we have a returning special guest, our resident Lord of the Rings expert, to come and explain to us what this show did better and what that one didn't do at all. Dr. Ayomide, how are you doing?
Please, I don't think there's any way I've ever been called a Lord of the Rings expert. So, to be honest, I thought you were referring to me, and then I thought, oh, it's not me then.
No, you are the closest to the.
But I am back. I am back. I mean, I do put up my hand as the person who liked the Rings of Power. But yes, I'm glad to be back for other shows.
Okay, and then our host, the man himself, Dapo.
Hey, thanks today. Yes, so this is as you said, a one-off. And we might do more of this if we get more demands, for sports shows. This doesn't quite fit the format of our normal audio podcast because we have a rule. We say it's got to be related to comics or superheroes. That's basically our rule. But there was such a demand for this. And among the listeners, all of us here, we all watched it and we all actually loved it. So we thought, you know what? We will, for our listeners, we'll do anything. So we decided, yes, we are going to review Andor. Now, I want to give some background. When the first Star Wars films came out, I was young and I remember them. I enjoyed them. I was a big sci-fi fan. So as a kid, watching those films, I really enjoyed them. As the years have gone by, I've fallen out of love with Star Wars. I still watch every single piece of material I can get about Star Wars, but I no longer am a geek for them, as you call it. I'm not I just watch it because it's a film and I watch it and I've watched the past ones. I keep on watching it. In my heart of hearts, I'm a Trekkie. No, Star Trek is my jam. Star Wars, no. Having said that, over the years, there's some gems that I like. I loved Empire Strikes Back. I loved Rogue One. I hated the prequels. Let's be on the table. Now, Disney started all these TV shows. We had quite a few. And I think out of all of them, up to this point, I think the one that I enjoyed the most has been Mandalorian. I did not like Boba Fett at all. I did not like Obi-Wan at all. What else has there been? In a weird way, I think the ones I've enjoyed the most have been almost the animated ones. So I really enjoyed the Clone Wars. I think that was like almost my favorite for a long time. So I don't have a love affair with Star Wars at all. And then when the show came out, Andor, I thought, okay, I liked Rogue One, but I didn't have much hope for this. And even when I first started watching it, I wasn't sure what they were going for. But this show, episode after episode, it just gradually started winning me over. And I mean, 4 episodes in, I was just in love with the whole show. And yes, it's Star Wars, but it's almost as far away from what people consider Star Wars as possible in terms of there's no Jedis, if I'm correct. There's no uses of the Force, There's even very little. Fine, they do mention the Emperor a couple of times, but it's basically what we have in this show is a look at I would say the average people or the normal people, the mundane people, the people in the street, the people who work for the empire. The drones, your middle management and your blue collar workers. And I just think it's good. Well,
it is pretty much a ground level take. It's not 30,000 from above. It's a ground level take on the lives of the people that work for the Empire.
I'm going to borrow a Star Trek term. It's almost what you call the lower decks, but it's even more lower decks than that. You know, it's. Or okay, if I use what's that show everybody loves? Upstairs, downstairs. So this is a look at the people on the ground level and how it works. I just really enjoyed this. I mean, I don't talk too much. I'll let you guys come in on your feelings about the show. I'll get into more details.
Yeah, some background. I'm not as old as Taco. I didn't. I wasn't born when
Tunde with the shade.
I wasn't born when the originals were being released, so I watched the entire. I think I remember when I watched Star Wars for the first time. I started with the first part, the midichlorians,
Okay.
Midichlorians and all of that, and those were the ones I watched first of all before I had to go back and watch the older ones. And I think my generation, we have a slightly different relationship, and I think that's interesting to explore.
Yeah.
Compared to you, for you guys, the 4, 5, and 6 is the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
For me, it was 1 to 6, and the films progressively got worse because the VFX was completely different.
Yes.
And yeah, so it affected the storytelling. The 1, 2, 3 had really good special effects, but the 4, 5, and 6 effect was over that generation. It took me much later, like years later, for me to revisit the franchise and appreciate the Empire Strikes Back for what it did in terms of storytelling and all of that.
Okay.
But I think I have a better relationship with Star Wars than Star Trek. I'm more of a fantasy person than science fiction. And Star Trek hasn't been, in my own generation, Star Trek hasn't been the most impressive of franchises in terms of the content we're putting out forward. So yeah, for Andor as a show, I think you've described it very well. And I think this is one of the biggest strengths we have of Star Wars as a whole, is that it's a very expansive universe. From the beginning, you are free to imagine it's so wild that you can even take one small minor character detail that only appears on screen for 2 seconds, and then there's a huge backstory behind it that people are already imagined, fans are already spun on tales. It's a very wild world. It's not something you see a lot in fiction. Most stories you read about or watch, it's just focused on these characters and this particular world. But Star Wars is very different. It's very, very vast. It makes you feel the very weight of the world. That's why up until now, people are still clamoring for all these shows, and there are still fans to watch all these shows. It's almost like a comic book universe in a way, in terms of how big it is and how expansive it is. I think it's even bigger than something like Game of Thrones, which, yes, it's big, but it's not as big as Star Wars in terms of how much content is there to mine from it. So there is that going for Star Wars. And then finally, because there's something about fans that you always want to see, how does it actually work? If you love world building like I do, you always want to see, how does this actually work? How does this actually function on the ground level? And I think this is what this show does best compared to the rest of the shows. Mandalorian played a bit with it, taking us the ground level of a mercenary, but it's still a very high-powered mercenary. But this one comes down to the very people like you and me. How do they live in the Empire? How do they work in the Empire? And then we get to establish stories that we can actually relate to, which takes more relatable than blowing up planets. And I think, so I think that is what this show has going for it. I'll get into it a bit more after this introduction and letting others talk about context going into the show.
Doc?
Well, I'm the noob here in a way because I've never really watched anything Star Trek, and don't tell anybody, but I haven't seen the first 3 Star Wars films.
Right. I'm just let's make sure this is recording. Good. Sure
it's recording.
We have some blackmail material.
Right. I saw 4, 5, and 6, or the prequels, depending on how you want to count them.
Yeah.
So
No,
really 1, 2, and 3.
Wait. Let's be accurate. Which one did
Yeah,
you see?
1, 2, and I saw the
He's
second
talking
trilogy.
He's talking
Okay, so 1, 2,
Phantom
and 3.
Yes.
Menace.
Okay,
1 to
fine.
3,
Yeah, so
Okay.
episodes 1, 2, and 3, which chronologically now our own timeline came as
Yeah.
4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And I've seen everything since. But to be honest, I always say to people, like, part of why I haven't seen the original trilogy is because it is so much part of pop culture that you cannot reference it and I won't know what the reference is, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there will always be some deep cuts, but like any of the major references, I'm very familiar with because they're just so much part of mainstream culture. But yeah, why I liked Andor was, one, like everybody has said, I haven't liked anything since Mandalorian in terms of the TV shows. I liked Obi-Wan a little bit, but it's more like, no, I think it's more like I didn't hate Obi-Wan. Right. More than I liked it. As for, Boba Fett, it was a weird show where the best episode was the Mandalorian episode. So, where your best episode is the one involving a character from another show, that doesn't really speak very well to the show itself. But I loved Andor, and yes, like everyone says, I was expecting to see Force use at some point or Jedi, and nope, didn't do any of that. It was slow, it was but it picked up and it held me. So one of the ways I judge a show is how much am I looking forward to the show. There are some shows that I'm just like, oh, okay, it's time for this show again. And then there are some shows that I actually look forward to Rings of Power. I'm sorry.
I didn't say anything. Continue.
But there are some shows that I actually find myself thinking about and being like, man, I can't wait to see this episode coming out. And Andor was that. For context, my mom was with me when Andor was around and she got caught up in it. And she only saw 2 episodes.
Okay.
Just, I had to explain some background to her, but like she was invested. Right? And like my mom likes Nollywood, just so you understand. Like, you're some very typical Nigerian mom, right? Most of the time we're watching like Nollywood, Netflix and stuff, but I had to watch my shows and she'd watch some of them with me. And yeah, everybody has said what they liked about it. I just add a couple more things which are thematic that I liked. Right. And my main thing that I like was that theme of, it reminded me of Lord of the Rings in the sense of how Lord of the Rings is really about the fact that the change that happens in the world is really the little people and the choices that they make.
Yep.
Right. We tend to look at the big bombastic figures, but it's really what the little people on the ground are doing. And it's like how when you hear World War stories, you hear about this one German somewhere that kept like 50 Jews in his house, or like something like Anne Frank's diary, right? Which is those are small, in quotes, inconsequential things, but those stories are the stories that people actually connect with. And that's, for me, was what Andor was doing. It was that sort of boots on the ground, what the ordinary people are doing, and that sort of ethos of the importance of the ordinary, right? But then also it showed for me the terror of the empire, because one of the things I saw people say online, and it's so true, is the empire never felt so terrifying as in Andor. In spite of no Death Star, in spite of no stormtrooper. Well, there were some, I don't know, they were not stormtroopers, but there were those people.
Yeah, there were Imperial troops.
Imperial troops, yes.
Imperial
you
troops,
see, my nobleness is showing. Right? In spite of the absence of all of that, but there was still that sense of the terror, because it just felt like these people were like, what hope do they have against this all-encompassing force? And that really just brings that to bear. And then for me, it reminded me so much of, I think everybody will resonate with this, of growing up in Nigeria during the time of Abacha. Not to get too much into politics, but like it was like,
yes,
it was an actual dictator.
Some people cannot, though, but continue.
Like I think about it a lot to this day. Like there was a period in Nigeria where we're living in an actual dictatorship, where you couldn't speak in public because you never knew, like people were being disappeared, literally, right? And it wasn't for very long, thankfully, but it happened. And I think about it a lot. Like like no matter how bad things are now, this is not that. And the Empire reminded the Andor show reminded me of that, the way the Empire was portrayed in it.
Okay. Red, your thoughts?
Yeah, okay. My thoughts. Let me go back to how to get started. So I saw 4, 5, and 6.
In the right order.
The originals. Then I saw 1, 2, 3. And after 3, I just started mentally checking out. I'm not a very patient person because the shows started getting worse. And I kind of like started watching the animations and didn't really. I would watch all the December releases of all the subsequent movies, but they just did nothing for me. Then came Mandalorian. I'm like, okay, I could get back into this because I mean we all knew Boba Fett. That's where so I could get back into this. Boba Fett came along. I'm like, this is why I hated it in the first place. Then
Obi-Wan.
What's his name? Obi-Wan. I absolutely hated that movie. That show. It made no sense. It was not necessary. I don't think they should have done it. Then came Andor. I will disagree that it was slow. I like the build-up. It's boots on the ground.
Will you accept deliberate?
It was deliberate, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's deliberate. So it's a slow burn. I mean, boots on the ground, slight political intrigue, then the real hopelessness of people living in the far corners of a region where, I mean, it's a backwater mining town. You wouldn't even think they're important, but still, there's that presence and the fear you mentioned is still there. And then you have this guy who's just fearless. I mean, all he cares about is finding his he doesn't even know he's a rebel.
Yeah.
He's just stubborn.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, he's just stubborn. Like he just wants to find his sister and he will do whatever he can within using whatever means. I mean, he's not going to go up against the Empire, but he's going to like sneak around and get it. So the way he got woven into being a rebel and being sucked in, I like the intrigue. And like you guys said, we'll talk about it, how Luthen and apparently everybody knew him except him. Everybody knew who he was and they could research him. So yeah, I like the show. And I think it was well done.
You touched on
I wanted to sorry.
No, go on, Doc. You go first.
Oh, so sorry. I just wanted to, partly buttress, but also partly push back on the fact that, like what you said about, Andor being, how did you put it? You said it was, that he was fearless. Like, I feel like what I liked about the show was that...
I just said fearless. I said it was just stubborn.
No, you said fearless at first, and then you said stubborn.
Oh, okay. So I fearless because he was looking for... He wasn't a hero.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like, what I liked about him was that he was beyond fearless. It was more like he was brash and rash.
All the way.
And actually a bit stupid. And I like that. I like the fact that it was just like, it was a goat, in the Nigerian sense of the word.
It
was a stubborn goat.
You can relate to what he's doing. Not calculated.
Who does not hear word and who stumbles his way into a rebel. He doesn't even want to be a rebel. Like when he's first told about being a rebel, he's like, please. I'm not interested in this nonsense. I have a goal and I have a specific thing I'm aiming for. So I like that actually.
Yeah,
that sort of brashness of him.
I was going to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the political side. Now, I enjoyed. So there's a senator in this show, and she's basically a senator who's working behind the scenes with the rebels. To cut it short, that's what she's doing. But I liked showing how much tension and stress it was causing her. You normally have the senators who are, I'm helping the rebels on the side, and it looks very easy when they're in the big movies, they just betray the Empire. It's all nice and simple. But here you can see the toll. We see this woman, the toll taken on her. She's basically living day to day in fear of.
And she's also losing power within the Senate.
Yes, Yeah, exactly. So I love seeing that okay, people, they're not, I'm betraying the empire, but it's not that easy for me. It's a toll on me, but I'm still going forward. Simple things like an audit bring the living fear into her, because if they order her books, a lot of the money that is gone missing, which has been going to the rebels, and she's terrified of it being found out. At one point, until the end, I believe she's almost trying to make a deal with some mobsters.
With the devil.
With the devil, and almost at the expense of her daughter, if I ever read that correctly. And so so there's a cost.
She even frames her husband. She even frames the husband.
Not just at the expense of her daughter, but of her own history, because her goal had been to prevent her daughter going through what she had gone through. It's multifaceted. It's also trauma for her.
Exactly.
Really.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing when you start talking about that, I wanted to touch on the cost of rebellion.
Yes.
So growing up, when you watch the underdog stories fighting up against the big man, there are always these good, pure-hearted people who would not do anything evil, who cannot even countenance the idea of doing something evil to win the war. You always have there's always that plot line in the story where the heroes say, "Oh, I'm not going to go that far. Why? Because I'm the good guy. That is how we win. Or I'm going to win by the power of love, or something equally ridiculous like that." But in this particular story,
not Luther.
but in this particular story, it shows the cost of rebellion. Like, this is actually the real cost of rebellion, and it means you're actually going to be worse than the evil you're fighting in some ways.
Yes.
That's just of the government.
They brought that pragmatism.
Because like the entire plot of Luther's plot is to make the entire act more evil, because up until this point, the empire is evil, but the people are not feeling it, but it wants them to rebel. So this whole idea of rebellion is, okay, the empire has to act worse to these people. It has to oppress these people even worse than they are. And millions are going to die from that. A lot of people are going to get sent to jail for that. There are going to be a lot of oppression because of his actions.
There needs to be pain.
Exactly.
That is actually one of the. It's a very good point. I'm glad you picked on this. You're right. Luther basically committed an act. Now, if you look at it on the surface, it's a robbery. They're getting money, but that was not his main aim. His main aim was to make the empire react by being harsher and being stricter, and hence making the populace kick back a bit more. So he's literally planting the seed for the rebellion. But and you're right, that's true. Now, in most of these very straightforward right and good movies or shows, that's a villain move.
That's how you know that this is a bad guy.
He's a villain, He's a bad guy.
Yeah, you know. And okay, can I say one thing here? Let me ask a question. There's two things. The quality of the writing on this show is beyond and above anything Disney has done so far. Am I right or wrong? And I'm not talking about Star Wars only. I'm talking about everything.
You're right.
This is not a Disney show. I don't know how Disney got lucky to get this kind of show on their platform.
Right.
But this is kind of show you expect on HBO, not on Disney.
Yes, exactly. Now, there's one little thing
it's not luck, but it's quality.
There's one little weird thing I noticed about this show. It's not a bad thing. It's just weird. Out of the 12 episodes, I can swear to you, in 10 of those episodes, I'm always caught by surprise when they roll the credits. I could never predict.
There's always somebody.
You don't know where the climax is.
Sometimes it just ends at a weird place. It's over. It caught me up quite a lot. And I said to Tex that show, that might be in the middle of a sentence at the end of the show, the end of the episode. It was just a strange thing.
I think
speaking of the writing.
This is on that what Dako just mentioned. I think because I didn't watch it with you on a week-to-week basis, I chose to binge it.
Oh, you binged it, right?
Yeah, and I think it works better that way because it's just a seamless flow of TV. And I think they filmed it specifically for that purpose. This is someone taking advantage of the streaming and binging content that we have nowadays.
Right.
Yeah. So there is that as well. And there's something I want to touch on quickly. It's the structure of the show. What you said about the way it ended got it to me. Like, this show is clearly divided into different structures, like there is the Andor in the village and him leaving the village with Luther, the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Then there is the planning the heist.
Yes.
There is the jail episode, and there's now the finale at the end.
Yes. Yes.
And the politics is all through it. Like,
yes.
now this is something that, for me, I think I mentioned it to you, Dako, that the first 2 episodes I didn't really enjoy the show up from that point. I felt this was very slow, not my type of thing.
It was all set up.
Yeah. So it picked up in episode 3 for me. But each of the particular sub-stories that were happening, in most other shows, when these things happen, it's clearly usually very filler. And
yes,
you're like, okay, get
there was
on.
no filler.
I want to get
filler,
get back to my main story quickly. This show, even the part where Andor is in jail, it's a completely new story entirely. Like completely.
That jail, that prison break.
Yeah.
That is a very good episode.
Those series of episodes.
It's not just one episode. For me, there's the Aldani half of the show, and then there's the jail and post-jail half of the show. And it's almost like 2 different. The tones are different because, like, you know, the jail is all very pristine and very empire-y, and then the Aldani side and the Ferric side, very grimy and very, and you spend most of your time in both parts, like for both parts. But yeah, like for me, the jail part, in fact, at a point in the jail part, I'd almost forgot about Aldani. It was just like, I was just so fully invested in what was happening in the jail bits.
Do we want to talk about the episodes?
Okay, so let's break it down. So we and I like what they just said there. That there was the introduction to Andor himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was the meeting up with Luthrum and then the planning of the heist.
Yeah.
There was the heist itself, and then there was the prison, and then the rebellion, and then the rebellion.
And ironically, he got arrested for nothing related to the heist.
That was beautiful. But let's start from the beginning. Okay. Let's take it from the beginning down. So the introduction part, because there's some key characters introduced here.
Go ahead. Okay.
From Andor, we meet Bix. Then we meet the very interesting character. I think this is one of my most interesting villains so far. The police officer, the Obasabi police officer.
The guy. What's his name?
Yes.
You should also say the slight and Obasabi and slightly creepy.
He's not slightly, he's very creepy.
He's a stalker.
Would you call him a Jobsworth? There's a phrase we use in the UK. I don't know if you have a similar phrase in America. Like a Jobsworth. I
don't even know the phrase. Say the phrase again.
A Jobsworth.
Oh, a Jobsworth. Yeah. Oh no, he's way worse than a Jobsworth.
Okay.
What's a Jobsworth?
Somebody takes a job too seriously.
Is it really that? I thought a Jobsworth is somebody who is just like, I follow the rules. I follow the rules.
Yeah.
Like there's no initiative. There's no creativity. It's just
it's not. But it's not the rules though. He took it personal. Serial count.
That's what I'm saying. That is for me. It's worse than a Jobsworth. He's a real radical for the cause. Like he carries it on his head even more than.
Okay. Now that you say that,
I think I agree.
He was
Is he a radical for the cause?
No, he was.
No, I think he wanted promotion.
Ambitious.
His ambition.
Yes.
It was his identity. His way of making some. Like, if I can achieve this, then I can. My life is not a waste.
Yeah. This is why I call him very interesting. You can't just pin him down and say he's ambitious, because he clearly cares for the soldiers that were killed. Those 2 men that were killed, when nobody cared about them, he was bothered about it. That why isn't my boss taking this seriously? And then you can't just call him a radical for the cause.
No, but I could have seen the change why, like, it could have been a reason for him to get ahead of his boss, right, and prove himself to the empire.
Today, that's how I saw it.
Yeah, because he knew his boss was slacking, so this was his opportunity.
He was more concerned to solve those crimes as a way to show up his work.
Yeah, yes. I don't think it was because he cared about those men. That was just like convenient justification. You know, we all have our socially acceptable reasons. But like, it was really about being the one to solve the crime, not about the crime.
Because
if that makes sense to me, anyway.
Let me put it like, he's a very dedicated person that he wants to see a job done well.
Yeah, agreed.
So it's not about it's like when he was talking with the boss.
He's a fanatic.
Because it doesn't. I don't think he really believes in the empire that much as he believes in rules. And growing in the system.
No, I think he believes in the
This is
empire.
why I'm saying. This is why I say. This is why I say.
I think he doesn't believe in the empire the way I think you're saying it, Red.
Yeah.
I think he's bought the story of the empire.
Yes, and he wants to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's placed in that story, which he has to work his way up to.
Yeah.
Because that's the point of that story. This point of that story of the empire is that story of the empire has a place for him. It's let me tell you, that guy is, to me, honestly, that guy is exactly the kind of person that gets radicalized. And is exactly the kind of person
He's
that
radicalized.
rises. Yes, he is radicalized. It's just that the empire is the radicalization sort of thing.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. I'll put the question to you guys about him. If this was the Galactic Republic, he would be hailed as a hero for almost everything it does.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Because that's what I'm saying. His character is very interesting to me because it's like the bureaucrat that goes out of the way to.
No, okay. Consider this like a country with embassies. Let's say Nigeria with embassy in where US, New York. Then there's an embassy in the Arctic Circle, and this is where he's stuck. He wants to get out of doing that on Ferrix or wherever he is, and he wants to be noticed. He wants to go. He wants to be where the big people are. He tracked down Deidre. What's her name?
Yeah.
To show her like, this is what I'm doing. Twice.
And also, you have to realize when you met his mom, you realize why he wants to get out of that place.
Yeah, exactly.
And wants to advance so quickly.
It's honestly, when you meet his mom, you actually have empathy for him, which I was not expecting to have.
I'm not sure.
No, I see what I'm saying.
I've known people like his mom, and honestly, you don't want to continue.
Meeting his mom, I understood how he was.
You can tell where the damage is from.
He's the kind of person. His mom was that kind of nice person who is systematically undermining everything about you with a smile.
Yeah, she's not nice.
I'm nice is in major quotes. That's what I'm saying. Like eroding you with a smile and with conflicts, with colored series.
She didn't even want him to have any self-confidence.
Not at all.
No, that's what I'm saying. She's that kind of very destructive, but systematically destroying him.
That's why I say, for me, he's the most interesting character on the show in terms of the complexity behind him. Because in some ways, like I mentioned, you can feel some empathy for what he's going through. And this is a character that typically, in the typical show, is the good guy. Is the guy that goes out to solve the crimes. And in this particular show, it's not even competent. Let's put it that way. And it's very clear when he's giving the speech to the soldiers.
But he's not a field guy. He's never been in the field.
So actually, today, talking about competence.
Yeah.
This show is the first time we see the rank and file of the Empire shown as competent people. I like the fact they were not shown as the normal idiots you see in the movies, who could be hoodwinked by a simple ruse that would have fooled a 10-year-old baby. Here, there's competence. So to fool them, you have to be ultra competent as well. So it works on a board, and I liked it. Nobody was.
That's the mark of a good show. Sorry to cut you short, but that's the mark of a good show. Yeah, because if you notice, if you are the outsmart your characters, your characters can only be as smart as the writer. So if you don't have very intelligent writers, you get the plot of Loki, where they act stupidly and everybody's acting stupid as well.
With the shade.
Yeah, but when you have intelligent writers writing it, the characters, both the villains and the heroes, have to be intelligent as well. You don't just say, "Oh, I'm smart. I'm the smartest person in the world." You actually show them acting intelligently as well, and I think Andor excels in that. So yeah, the Empire for this, it's fantastic. Still on Serial though, why I highlighted him as an interesting character is because I watched the review and they talked about this where they used a particular word, the banality of evil.
Yes.
And I particularly like that phrase.
Yes.
Because it shows how bureaucracies, Serial is the perfect example of this, how bureaucracies can be evil without even the characters themselves thinking what they are doing is wrong or out of place.
So that phrase has been used a lot, especially to describe, when we talk about Nazi Germany, there's the people at the top. There's people at the top who know what they're doing, but there's a whole system behind them, beyond them, that are probably just pure bureaucrats, just doing
doing their job.
The 9 to 5, but the decision they're making, the impact of it is pure evil. But the way it will come across that desk, it's like it's just okay. Let me just
sign this off. Yeah.
None of the people, when you ask them, would think they're doing anything evil.
And that's the point of the phrase, right? Is that the face of evil is not a monster. The face of evil is someone that looks just, it's like this thing, like every time there's a massive catastrophe, there's this thing people always say, like, oh, that person must be an animal, or those people they're monsters. And it's like, no, they're humans like you, just caught up in a different kind of system.
Yeah. And that's why I liked when they also showed the Imperial, when they were having this almost like an office debate. So you had two colleagues who were trying to one-up each other.
Yeah.
And they took it to their boss. And the way he decided, okay, that's how reasonable. Everything just looked like what I could expect in an office environment.
It's once you get an office environment.
Yeah. Exactly. And I thought, oh, this is great. Yeah, it was. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still a bit where they showed a bit of evil, because when that lady, I forget her name,
Dedra.
Yeah. When they started torturing one of those guys with screams of raped children or something like that.
Man, that was hardcore.
Yeah, that was hardcore. That was a bit hardcore.
Yeah.
So I think, so that phrase is very important. And I think it's something we'll talk about more later in the show, because it shows just how, because this empire, as it is right now, they are doing a pretty good, what they are doing, their goals, they are keeping law and order. They are trying to arrest a dangerous criminal who is fomenting trouble. But it's completely evil on the surface. And I think most of our governments right now can actually relate to that on a very...
Agreed.
Yeah. So quickly, I also speed run through the Aldani arc. The
Aldani arc.
Yeah, the
prison arc.
No, the heist arc quickly. I just want to touch on one thing there, and that's the pilgrimage. There's something they said there that, like, this is how evil works. You don't stop people from doing what they want to do. You just give them alternatives. So when they were talking about how they stopped them from marching to protests to come and meet them and protest the festival, it wasn't about, oh, we are telling you don't come. It's come as you want, but we're going to put hotels here where you can rest. We're going to put this there where you can rest up. And from thousands of people, it was just like a few people coming in. And I think that's like the most insidious action taken by the empire in the entire show for me. It wasn't a grand evil that started not to do anything. It was just simple pleasures, just diverting your attention from something. And that was really...
I remember when they said that, I thought, oh my God, this is very, 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 very shifty, the way they did it. But that's how it works in the real world.
In the real world,
they erode your culture bit by bit. It's not like, right, stop doing this. But day one, it's like, oh, okay, you can do that. Oh, but maybe you do it this side. Oh, maybe 20 years later, before you know,
things have transformed.
It's gone. I mean, this show does a lot of that, like little hints at how things like this work in the real world. I mean, even in the prison, I was that's the way I was in awe of how they managed to delude all these prisoners
that they were living
to working so fast, working against each other with the hope that you're gonna be free.
I want to ask everyone, actually, on that point, I want to ask everyone a question. How did you feel in the moment when you realized that nobody was going? Like,
I've seen that in the movie before.
Right. So
you've seen what?
I kind of knew.
I've seen something like that before.
Yeah, I guessed.
Oh,
so the reason why I guessed was Andy Serkis, great actor.
Yeah.
When we first meet him, he's totally on board with the prison system. He's helping them to run it, get things done faster, quicker, and he wasn't listening to Andor. Literally at that point, I realized there's something that's going to happen
that'll make him
wake up. And when there was this, when the one prisoner were working at the end of the shift and there's another shift at the end, I kind of guessed that I was getting two things. Either when they release them, they go and kill them somewhere, or they are releasing them to another area. I kind of guessed that was going to happen. So I was surprised. But I just like the fact that And I'm being funny.
Man, the sense of despair that I felt.
That show reminded me of when
oh my goodness.
When I worked at the post office. Honestly.
Yeah.
The routine, dead end, doing the work, doing a lot of work for an extra half an hour break. That mentality that was instilled in us, and I was a manager. I became a manager in that role, and I was doing that to other people. That brought it back.
You're the Andy Serkis. You're the Andy Serkis.
Yes, I was.
Here's the thing. It's when you want to imprison people, it's the hope. And that's what they did well. Like
it's the hope that which show is that from? It's the hope that kills you.
It's quite a lot of shows. They do it's a common saying,
Yeah, because that's where the empire was perfectly evil. Like you give the people, okay, so you finish your term, you go out, you're done. And people would not even bother trying to rebel. They say, okay, this is the way out. Like you tell people, oh, this is the only way you can make money. You do this, you get it, you're done. And you get people going, okay, just follow the system, just keep the system. Anybody can do it. I can do it. Just sit down, and you don't. These are people in prison for ridiculous crimes. He didn't even commit a crime.
I don't know,
and he's in prison for 6 years.
That's the thing that made me that's the thing that made me think of dictatorships the most, because that's literally what happens. Like, you know how you go into prisons, like, you know how people have gone to Kirikiri, and it's like, why they stole a loaf of bread.
Missing people, like what do you call it? Wandering.
Yeah.
You say wandering.
He was railroaded.
Yeah.
So like I so resonated with that, because it's like, my goodness, this is it right here. This is it.
Yeah.
When they
it's the random, and that itself is terrifying, to know as a citizen that you are subject to this chaotic system and this sort of randomness. Like,
that can happen. That is what hits me the most, because it was very relatable to Nigeria during the NSAS period, where as a tech bro working in tech, as a young person, the police can arrest you for anything, and if you don't know any political, you are gone, completely gone. So he was just like, and most of my mates, most of us were like, yeah, you don't wear your dreadlocks. If you behave normally, they won't disturb you. And some of them still got arrested for doing literally nothing. Yeah, and that idea that Andor had in him, that, okay, I just have to get out to have my own money, live my own peaceful life. Don't mind the empire won't mind me. It shows the fallacy of that short sighted.
The empire is always minding you.
The empire is always minding you. On a lighter note, learn how to swim.
Yes.
Wow. After all of that, and the circus gets to the end of the road and they can't swim.
I feel
that was so tragic. Bad. My goodness.
Like, that hits me hard.
Yeah, as well as I like
what? You can swim.
In most films, that escape plan would be perfect.
Yeah.
I knew he couldn't swim once he got to that edge.
But at that end, I thought, so you guys basically, after all of this, you're just going to jump into water and swim and hope for the best. That was awesome.
That was hard.
Can we talk about the rebellion bits?
Yeah.
Quickly, before we go, Jay, I just mentioned something about the prison act. The returning the prisoners back.
Yep.
At first, I was like, why is the empire being so stupid? Like, that's an idiot ball move. Simply transferring them to another prison, and the problem would not have happened. But then I realized that it's still bureaucracy. People are stupid, and people will always take it. Evil will always take it too far. Fascism does not just stop at one particular level. They will continue to push the buck.
They were probably moving them to other places before, and they're like, oh, it's too expensive. Just move them downstairs.
I was going to say that was probably efficiency. Just the efficiency of it.
Or maybe somebody's spreadsheet got
exactly
corrupted and he made a mistake. It's gonna be a spreadsheet mistake. I can see
that.
But
this is the mistake that made them millionaire, right? How they found out. Somebody went back to where it was supposed to go.
But this is. I was going to make a point actually, and you said something just now that Tunde, which is, this is the problem with authoritarian regimes and governments, is that the only way to be successful, and that's why authoritarian governments are actually fragile, even though they don't look fragile, because the only way they can work is to maintain control over everything, and that's just not possible because human beings are human. And so actually the most successful authoritarian governments are the ones that don't actually over control. Like they leave enough slack. Those are actually the worst ones. Like they leave enough slack for you to feel, oh, I have space, I have space, I have space. And then the control is just very focused in a few areas. But you see, when you're trying to like control every bit of information,
you get pushback.
You can't even control it. That's the thing, because information will always break through.
Sorry, I think
that's the difference between Aldani and the prison.
I think North Korea begs to differ. You can't put a system in place for authoritarian.
Yes, but you see, North Korea is fragile in a way, because at the end of the day,
we've been saying that for donkey years.
For donkey years now.
No, but let me put it like this: you have a country that is basically like a prison.
Yes.
Right.
And it's working for him.
It's working, but what kind of working? You can't compare. So look at China, for instance. China has been smart and they've been like capitalists with their communism.
And
but you can see how
and it's backfired.
And it's backfiring for them.
And it's backfired now because it's backfired now. It's backfired now because of the level of control. So North Korea is a good example of perfectly total control.
Yes.
Here's what I will say. It will work because it's perfectly total control.
Yes, and Doc, compare the timeline.
But when it blows up, it will blow up more than anything else has blown up.
But
that's the thing.
Yeah, but compare the timeline to China's timeline. China, the timeline of their control is longer than China, and yet China, with their little freedoms, have to now rein it back in.
Yes, sir.
We'll see, but I'll still argue that North Korea is still the exception that proves the rule. If you see what I mean, like even if it's an exception, it's still an exception that proves the rule.
I mean, it's not an exception in that we've lived under this kind of systems for most of our lives, most of our humanity. This democracy experiment is a relatively new experiment on this time of things. We've mostly lived under perfect control.
If you're looking at
no, in Nigeria, it's not been perfect though. If I'm being honest, it's not been perfect on that level.
It's not perfect. It's not perfect anywhere.
So
we've never had the China levels in Nigeria. I promise you.
No, I mean that not Nigeria. I mean in like
it's talking democracy.
Right.
Yes. It's not us.
Okay.
Yeah. But even in the show, you are right about something that's the difference in how authoritarian regimes work. Like the ones that give them freedom is shown clearly in I mentioned it earlier, in the prison, in the heist section, where you just divert their attention and they will die out automatically. Their resistance will die out. Versus the prison, where the smallest bit of mistake can cause a huge catastrophe. But here's the thing about those regimes: before that smallest piece of mistake can happen, it takes a lot of work.
It can take a while.
Yes. And that's what they're banking on. That
it takes a lifetime. Do you know how many people have died in that prison?
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
And look at how much effort Lutheran had to put into to stoke the flames of rebellion.
Yes.
That's the other thing. Yeah. The rebellion still it doesn't happen on its own. That's the other thing this show shows very clearly. That rebellion doesn't just happen. It needs leadership. It needs leadership, it needs planning, it needs strategy. It's not inevitable.
Thank you. That's the word. It's not that people always say that, oh, this evil government cannot last forever. It's so evil.
People that believe in karma.
Yeah, like karma will happen.
I've always. I'm sorry, we can go back to Nigeria, but I have to say this: Nigeria is a great example. I've always said it depends on the people. Some people will take a lot of crap for donkey years, and people thinking, oh well, God is there. Oh, there's hope. If you're hopeful,
there is always hope. Once you give people hope.
Let me say it in Yoruba, which I think kills everything. Allah ju Allah.
Yes, exactly.
God passed them.
Yes.
And that gives you, the belief in power is going to come and save you.
Stay at some point.
Keep you going till you drop dead.
Exactly. So that's what, and that is the thing. Once you give people a little bit of hope, you can get away with a lot of shit as possible. You can get away with as many crimes as possible because they will just be focused on, I can get it. If I can work hard enough, if I can be special enough, I can get it. And then we get to the final section.
Thing reminds me of, sorry.
I was going to say, some people argue the capitalist system is also like that.
It's not exactly like that.
It is. Honestly, I believe it is.
It is exactly like that.
Especially if you're
intentionally designed.
If you go for capitalism, to me, it's no worse than the empire.
My favorite description of capitalism is the worst, and democracy too. They are both, capitalism and democracy are the worst systems, except for all the others. That's how I think of them. Like, and for me, the reason why I still think capitalism works better than these systems is that it at least aligns your self-interest with the self-interest of other people.
Well,
Whereas a lot,
it's hope packaged in a way.
no, it's
hope.
well,
That if they do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
well, that's a different layer. The fundamental base of capitalism is basically if you can provide value to other people, then you can find some value of your own.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On top of that, then you can now put this person made it big, so can you. But the truth is that you can apply that to any system.
But you see, that idea.
Yeah.
So that hope is a different layer. Hope.
Sorry. There's certain systems that do away with that. We're supposed to do away with that, but in human nature.
That's what I'm saying. The systems that do away with that, to me, they tend to assume putting your self-interest aside, and that doesn't really work. So for me, capitalism is pragmatic because it acknowledges that, you know what, your self-interest is there, but for your self-interest to work, it has to align with other people's self-interest, at least to some degree.
So all capitalism is, let's be very clear, is survival of the fittest. That's all it is, in a different format.
To a larger part, yeah.
That's what all systems are to a larger point. Survival of the fittest. Like, see,
that's the thing. But at least, again, for me, I would argue that capitalism allows randomization to an extent, depending on how much is controlled.
True communism is not.
Here's the thing: there's nothing like true anything. At the end of the day, all these systems are good. Like all these systems, they are fantastic theories.
They are good until humans use them.
But at the end of the day, power would always aggregate to an elite who would use that power to maintain power over the rest of the people. There is no system.
But what I'm saying is, there's a system, then you add human nature to it. But the system itself, so like for capitalism, the system itself is clearly survival of the fittest. Communism is not. But obviously, when people get involved, they will bring their human nature.
Actually, no, but what today said now for me captures what is different about capitalism and democracy, which is power will always aggregate. The difference between those two systems is that they ensure that power does not stay in one place for too long. Whereas with other systems, power will just stay there forever.
Let's get back to Andor, Cassian Andor.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered. I think the last thing I want to cover is the political rebellion of the woman and the sacrifice she's making, and then the final rebellion at the end.
Which woman? Not Marva, not the mom. You've not talked about his mom. I think we need to talk about the
I'm leaving the mom for the end because she covers like the end of it. But like the senator that will mention it a bit, and I want to go back to her because she is the price she pays for it. Like it's a lot. I can't imagine someone paying that level of. She's sacrificing her daughter. She's sacrificing her husband. She's sacrificing everything. She's doing this outrightly evil things. Her daughter is going to hate her forever.
Yeah. I think the husband should willingly sacrifice. he's a useful idiot.
But still, and this is like
and our own trauma. Don't forget that.
Our own trauma. She's fighting for an ideal, and it's like in any other scenario, this person will be cast as a villain. It's just because we agree that the greater good, that it's more the greater good, and that she's combating the greater evil. But let's make no mistake about it. What she's doing is evil.
Yeah.
It's for me. I think I can almost say, if not for the greater ideal, she's almost worse than most of the other characters we've seen on the show.
Today you brought a great point.
Yeah.
If you look at the actions, remove why they're doing it. If you look at the actions and compare it to the actions of somebody in the Empire, it's no difference. I would even say,
but the why is everything, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but the why, and that's where sometimes morality is a very dubious thing. The why is always personal to you. You can always think something is really evil.
You can always justify your why.
You can always justify it. Is it truly evil?
Well, let's put it this way. The way I like to put it is, what's the difference between a butcher and a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon? Both of them will use a saw and cut off, and a serial killer. All three of them will use a saw and cut off your leg. Yeah. Right? So
I'm just shaking my head at this example, but go ahead.
But for me, that's getting that. The difference is the why.
And my problem is the why It's always subjective.
The action may be the same.
Yeah, but
I don't think the why is as subjective
No,
as
the
they
why,
make it out to be.
the why could be subjective. You could have a surgeon who doesn't like doing it, but will do it for the money.
Yes.
In the example we're talking about, the why always has to be subjective.
Subjective.
It cannot be objective.
Mm,
Because what your actions, you've killed some security guard who's probably to do that job simply to put his children food on the table for his children.
okay, so let's put it this way. Let's put it this way.
Yes.
It's subjective in a sense, in the sense that yes, morality will always be subjective because ultimately it's like, but in a sense, again, that's only subjective in the sense that vision is subjective. Like what you see is what you see.
Yep.
But the fact that what you see is what you see doesn't mean that what you see is not there. Do you see what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
So we may see it differently, but there's something that we're seeing. Do you get what I mean? So I would argue that the real issue is, do we think it is more important to maintain law and order at any cost, which is the empire's point of view? Or do we think it is better for people to be able to live freely? And the truth is that at different times of human history, people have taken different views on that question.
Yeah, and to be honest, I could even argue that the empire wasn't even about law and order.
It was control.
Yeah, it was one.
Well,
person.
law and order is how they would call it.
Yeah,
but
it was one person. So you have one person. So because we've seen the story about the empire itself, we know that Palpatine just wanted to take control.
Yeah.
But everybody below that do not know that.
For them, it's about law and order and maintaining peace.
We had some rules. The rules have changed. We don't like that rule. And let's be very clear: the way Palpatine did it, he did it within the structure of their laws. They put in new decrees that gave him more power. So he did not like. It's not like he walked in one day and just took over the Senate with a force of arms. It was within the rule of law that he did what he did. Now, obviously, we see him as evil because we see him cackling, we see his evil, scary sight. So we know he's evil. Hence, anybody against him, we're happy. So hence why we see that senator as being good.
I have a terrible example right now.
Oh God.
Oh God. A terrible example right now. As you said, he did it within their law and everything. He took power within their law. I'm reminded of Trump supporters storming as the rebellion fighters, storming against Biden, who took power within the law, but they see him as evil, and they're launching a rebellion against him.
The where?
Yeah.
And those people
believe
do the right thing.
They still do.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they still do. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Because even at the beginning of the show, the empire wasn't, I won't say it's worse than most governments we have nowadays. I won't call it even. They were keeping the peace. They weren't going out of their way to be outrightly evil. Yes, they were building a massive Death Star. They had prison complexes like America does. They had all these coattails of civilization that we've taken for normal nowadays. So they were basically a civilian government we have now, and these people are just rebelling against them. These people are causing acts of terrorism. These people are basically terrorists as far as we're concerned. As far as we're concerned.
Yes, and we get back into the old debates.
Yeah.
Who's a hero? Who's a terrorist?
Exactly. And I think that's what Andor does well.
Yeah.
Because now because at the start of this show, like you mentioned, they are just a normal government. And so we can put any human government we are facing, even the best of our human governments, in that particular place. And it's Andor asking us to rebel against them, to go against. So it's an interesting question to explore, and I think they did a good job of that.
Yeah, and I think the way they ended with the rebellion, I felt it was emotional. I like the fact that the robots and in Star Wars, I've said this. I've said this now. Droids in Star Wars confuse me. I do not know if they're robots or they're actual sentient beings. I always get confused on this topic. I mean, guys, if you're listening and watching, in the comments, if there's some experts on Star Wars, are the droids in Star Wars, are they sentient? Or are they just very, very good AIs? The robots that belong to the mom of Andor,
oh God,
seemed almost emotional at some point.
Yep.
So so I'm always confused by that. But
They've been programmed for that. I mean,
is it just a clever program? Is that all it is? And then then again, I don't know what to say.
They felt. I mean, there was sadness. I mean, one of
again,
Marvel's robot.
Yeah, I don't want to get philosophical, but if you can't tell a programming from the real thing, does it really matter? We're programmed to. People say we're programmed as well.
I think we'll be asking that question in the next few years on practical levels.
Based on ChatGPT and Midjourney.
Exactly. We'll be asking that question seriously.
I do want to say though that I really like that, again, in the theme of, the rebellion is from ordinary people, that the final force, the final push for the rebellion was a woman who was already dead.
Yeah.
There was a delicious irony to that for me.
Yeah.
And it was not just a woman who was already dead, a frail, old, weak woman who was dead to boot.
Was she weak?
Was the final, weak in, like, physically, not obviously not in her, like basically a woman that if you saw her on the streets, you would not think you had anything to be afraid of, basically, in a million years. And that woman dead was the final sort of push.
And the was it the sister? Was it what they call the Sisterhood of Fenrix? What's that group?
The daughters of Fenrix.
So that group, in my mind, brought to me images of my aunties in some group where they're doing a job, collecting money. They'd be the focus.
Just ordinary women.
Yes. Your sisters, your aunties, the mama down the street type people.
That funeral scene, from the moment they started playing, you were practicing the instruments.
Yeah.
It hits me hard in the feels. Like
it
was very, like, the cinematography was excellent. The music score was excellent, but the emotions behind it, because we had a protest in Nigeria a few years ago, and we saw how it ended.
Yeah. You can. So both of you, yourself and Doc, are tying it to very recent Nigerian events.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. Yeah, I can see
that. Because at some moment I was happy it ended with on a positive note, because at some moment I was scared they were going to go the realistic route and have the Empire just slaughter everybody there and then.
Okay.
Yeah, but it ended on an hopeful note, but it hit hard. I actually paused the show at that point and went back to play the entire music when they were marching and all of that over and over again, because of how good it was, and then all of them listening to the song and all of that. I think that's a fantastic way to spark a rebellion.
Any final thoughts on this? Because we've been going for quite a while now.
Over time, yeah.
Any final thoughts on anything anybody else want to add? I mean, I personally want to see this creative crew or something else. I don't even care if it's not Star Wars. I want something similar to this in the Marvel universe. At this quality. I mean, they did 12.
Don't give to the.
They did 12 episodes without making it seem like there's feelers in it. Because there's always this common. Where a lot of us now believe that once you start getting past 10 episodes, there's a lot of filler. These guys did it properly. I mean, obviously they split into arcs, so I guess it worked. But I want to see this team, and I don't know who this team is, but whoever they are, I want them on something else.
Yeah.
To watch.
I won't be Tunde on this time, and I'll actually support that one. I want to see these guys. I want to see these guys
on the MCU.
Yes, on the MCU, exploring the 5 years with the flag. How the.
Who are you and what have you done with Tunde?
What's their name again? Those rebels, the Borders Without Flags or something like
that.
Yes. Flag Smashers.
From Flag Smashers from
Falcon. I actually want to see. I want to see these people tell the story of them in the 5 years of the snap.
Excellent.
It will be fantastic. Yeah.
Oh
yeah, one more thing to end this. One more thing for me. This show is actually just going to be 2 seasons, which I think is bittersweet in a way for me.
Right. Yeah. So today you just gave me some good news. I did not realize there's another season coming.
There's another season, definitely.
Okay, good. I was thinking. I didn't know. Sorry, I didn't realize they had announced it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So I think it's just going to be 2 seasons and cap that 2 seasons to just tell the entire story. So I'm really looking forward to the second season. And yeah, I think it will be one of my best shows of all time if they manage to end on this high note.
Right.
I like a self-contained show. Even though, like you said, there's this bitter part of you want it to be longer, but I think there's also something beautiful in something that ends well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's something frustrating about something that just goes on forever, and then it's like it goes past its best ovation.
Yeah, exactly. You want a Battlestar Galactica and not a never-ending show.
Yeah, exactly. You want something you can remember without some sourness, basically.
Lord of the Rings.
But yeah,
and on that cheap shot, I think we have to round this up. Guys, it's been fun. Even though we're talking about Star Wars, I would never believe I would be doing this, being the Trekkie I am. But yes, I enjoyed it. So it's a win for the Star Wars franchise and you Star Wars fans out there. I don't even know if Star Wars fans love this. I would love to get a poll on how much the hardcore Star Wars fans, how much they like the show.
Oh, one last thing.
I've heard some chatter about some people really not being happy about no Force or Jedi, but I think those are crazy people and they don't deserve anybody's attention.
They are crazy people.
A good show is a good show, man. Anytime. It's a good show.
For me, it's a 5/5 show. Easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so let's give it a score and let's end the show on this. So today you said 5/5 for you.
Easily, yeah.
Very strong rating.
Very strong, yeah.
I'll go next. I'll give it a 4.5/5.
I'm curious, what's the 0.5 for?
Oh,
I have a habit, to be honest, I've never given anything full marks. I don't think I've ever, even in my MCU, when I got 10, I go to 9.
Yeah.
For me, I always like they just score it over 4.5.
It gets a 4.2.
For you, Red, 4.2?
Why are you docking for? I'm curious. I'm just curious about what you're docking for if you dock.
It's a great me or Dapo?
You.
Me. It's a great show, but it's not a perfect show.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Doc?
5/5 means perfect, so it's not.
Right. I think for me, 5/5, I would say 5/5, not because it's perfect, but because I don't know what perfect even means when it comes to art. For me, 5/5 because it's so for me, it hits all the spots. It's well written, it's well acted, it's well executed, it's brilliantly shot, and it has all the extras in place, like music, everything. And it's got thematic hefts. What more can I ask?
Okay. What else can you ask for? Thematic heft is very important.
That was great. I hope our viewers and listeners will enjoy this, and we might do more of this if we get stellar shows out there that we think deserve this treatment.
Not
guys,
the issue, obviously, but yeah.
Oh God. I'm not.
Wednesday.
I'm not gonna get triggered. Guys, say your goodbyes.
Not today.
Today.
Sayonara, people.
Red.
Yeah. Good night. We'll see you next week.
And Doc.
Peace and happy holidays.
And it's a goodbye and see you later from me. Thank you guys for watching and listening.